As we approach the final week of the 2023 season for the Minnesota Vikings, upcoming game in Detroit, last game of the season, the fan base seems to be pretty split. There's two sides to this one where A, you try to win because there is still a shot at the
Right.
playoffs. You try to win, have three other things happen and get you in. Or do you go into this game, try to lose, and just solidify your draft position as a top 14, top 12, maybe even top 10 pick potentially?
Mhm.
There's a couple different options here. We're going to talk about those today because this game is not that exciting to talk about. But anyway, going into this game against the Lions, what do you think the Minnesota Vikings should do?
So it's a tough one. As a Vikings fan, you never want to see your team lose. I mean, you just don't. It's not in your system. Even like the coaches and the players, like no coach and player is gonna go into a game and just purposely lose. It just doesn't happen. The only thing you could see a coach do is if you do make the choice where it's obvious they're bringing in some young players and then they're seeing what they have in them. But in reality, well, I mean, partially that's true. But in reality, a lot of it's probably like, hey, we're not like really coming in here to try to win. Which I would say the choosing to start Nick Mullins Nick Mullins into this game is a sign to me that the Vikings are coming in here because they want to try to actually win. Just because we knew, I mean, them taking Jaren Hall out last game to bring Nick Mullins, that was a completely let's win this game move. So starting him in this game, I think it is all right. Let's go out and try to beat the Detroit Lions. So no matter what, they're going to come in and try to win. Ultimately, I mean, unless the Bears or the Lions just start playing their bench, which is possible. I think what I've been hearing, I haven't really looked too much into it myself, but what I've been hearing is the Lions don't really have much to play for.
They have a shot at 2 seed.
Do they still have it?
They'd have to win and Dallas would have to lose.
Okay. So that's definitely a chance. That's definitely a chance.
Plays at 320, and Dallas plays at 325. So Detroit, they're going to need to go all in.
Oh, nice. Okay. That's big. Because otherwise, I mean, no matter what, like we shouldn't win this game. Technically, it wouldn't be surprising for us to, start the season 1-4, go on a 0-5 or go 5-0 run, then a 1-5, just for us to kind of screw up our chances of a better draft pick in a completely pointless game for us, even though there is a small chance for playoffs. And I'll just bring this up real quick by our guy Dustin Baker here. He's kind of got the playoff scenario. We got to beat the Lions. Obviously, the Packers lose to Chicago, Seahawks lost to Arizona, and New Orleans or Tampa Bay lose. It's possible. I think you said it was like a 3% chance. It is possible, but not possible enough for me. And especially if you put in the idea of that if we did make it to playoffs, it doesn't really matter because you really think we're going to go far with Nick Mullins or whatever. Like our situation this year is way too, it's just, we're not in a good spot to go and actually make a run. So you feel like you go to playoffs, in my opinion, it was like Jaren Hall potentially being that spark would have been our last chance to actually feel like, hey, what if he was Brock Purdy and also we win the last two games and we go on a surprise run or something. But as soon as he went out at halftime, it was pretty obvious that wasn't the scenario that was going to roll out for us. And at that point I was like, it's time to start looking towards the draft in the future. So for me, I hate to see him lose, but ultimately, like, I prefer us to lose this game. I think it's obviously the smartest thing. If we end up winning it, I'm not going to be mad or anything. It's just going to be like, all right, we beat the Lions, whatever. But so what's your thoughts on this whole situation?
I know you said that it looks like they're trying to win by putting Nick Mullins in there, and it does. But they also damn well know that Nick Mullins will give you plenty of opportunities to lose as well. I mean, let's be honest. Nick Mullins, I thought out of Nick Mullins, Josh Dobbs, once he got settled and just and they started to make him try to run our offense, and Jaren Hall, I do feel like the offense moved most efficiently under Nick Mullins, at least until you got to the red zone, in which case then he would just make those boneheaded mistakes that are the reason why he's a backup quarterback. And eventually we ended up losing those games. We're on a 3-game losing streak now. And let's be honest, Nick Mullins was a big reason for that because we played well enough to win, and he just had a couple turnovers that we didn't. So you can look at it that way as well. But I don't know. For me, I was all let's win, let's try to make the playoffs.
Yeah,
until of course the Green Bay Packers came into the US Bank Stadium and whooped our asses. And after that, I'm just like, you know what? I'm exhausted of this season. I'm exhausted of the what ifs and the conversation. I just want to get to that actual time when decisions need to start being made. So my big thing is get through this game. Don't lose any more of your big time players to injury, and just get through the season. You win, whatever. You lose, you do end up solidifying your spot with a better draft pick, and then you move on into the offseason. I'm just exhausted. I'm ready for the season to be over with.
Yeah, and one thing I did want to bring up about the Mullins thing is one thing though scenario is like if you want, I think Justin Jefferson needs like 130 yards to get his 1,000. So I mean, if that's a part of the scenario, like you want Nick Mullins in there to be that guy. There with the Mullins in there, there's a real possibility that happens for JJ. So I guess going into this game, like I want JJ more than anybody. I'd love for JJ to get his stats. I'd love for Addison to get another touchdown. Like I would love to have that, but then still ultimately lose so we can have a better draft pick. And I kind of look at our draft scenario here. That's Dave Baker again. So this is kind of where we're at, sitting at the 12th pick. So obviously the thing with me is like if we do lose, it's not going to be that big of a deal. Or if we do win, I mean, because obviously we lost to Cincinnati, we lost to Denver. We would, if they end up losing and we won, we'd beat that tiebreaker, which means at the very least, and I don't know the Seattle situation for sure. They might have the tiebreaker over us for all I know, which would mean the worst we could be is 14-13 anyways. And then on the other side of it, if we lose, I know the Jets, I'm pretty sure we beat that tiebreaker. So I think if the Jets win and we lose, I think we still are ahead of them because everybody's saying the highest we can go is 9. But in that scenario, again, if we lose and Atlanta loses, they take that tiebreaker as far as losing goes because we beat Atlanta. Same with Vegas. And then Chicago, I think, is a little bit up in the air. If they end up losing to the Packers, I think we split obviously we split the head-to-head, but we also split the division games as well. And it would come down to other teams that we played, similar teams or whatever. And I don't really know how close that is. So, I mean, there's a possibility if Chicago loses, we might be behind them as well. So, I mean, really, if all those 3 teams lose and we lose, we'll be at 12 anyways. And then if we end up winning, the highest we can really go to is 14. I think maybe even 13 if Seattle actually wins that tiebreaker. So even if we win, it's not really the end of the world. But the idea of moving up from being the 9th pick compared to a 14th pick in a year where we really feel like we want to grab a quarterback, in a year where you're seeing good things from Penix in this last Sugar Bowl game, and now going into the national championship, and how depending on how he plays there, it won't be surprising if people are talking about him being a potential top 10 pick, which would be perfect around ours pick if we decide like, oh, we want Penix. I think a lot of people who watch that game are like, okay, we think Penix is that guy, but we do have to worry about his knee and his injury history, and that's a real concern. But at the same time, like, you don't really pass up on undeniable talent either. So that's something that we have to think about as well. And then, of course, then there is Bo Nix, who also went completely crazy in his bowl game as well. But I mean, obviously it's all about winning and stuff. So, I mean, seeing Penix doing that at the highest stage possible is kind of, I think, puts him a little bit ahead at this moment here. And then Jaden Daniels, obviously he's kind of came up as the favorite going in. Some people have him going like number 3 behind Drake May and Caleb Williams. And then, of course, we'll see how everything rolls out during the offseason. Like I've mentioned before, Anthony Richardson some people didn't even have him going in the first round at this point in the year. And then he ends up being the 3rd overall pick. So we'll kind of see. I think I think Drake May and Caleb Williams, I think Caleb Williams will go number 1. Drake May will go number 2. I think you'll see a lot of smoke where those two will kind of flop around and be like, this guy's more whoever the Bears trade to, because I think they're going to roll with Justin Fields, are going to people are going to say, like, I think Drake May is like the favorite, just like Shroud and Bryce Young last year, even though they probably would have went with Shroud. So I think that's definitely a scenario between them two. I ultimately think that's just gonna be 1 and 2, and then I don't really think you're gonna see a lot of changing with them two. But I won't be surprised, especially if Penix wins the championship and they go through the whole process, that maybe some people might even have him above Jaden Daniels potentially, and even with Bo Nix, depending on how interviews are going and all the kind of little stuff that comes out, and for whatever reason changes everybody's mind.
Yeah, I mean, I do think a perfectly healthy Penix is an easy top 10. I think teams are going to be I think there are going to be teams that are going to be a little too risk averse with him at that high. So I honestly think getting him at 14, if that's where we ended up being, would be an absolute steal for the talent you're getting. But I don't know.
But are you going to get him at 14 throughout the? I mean, he wins the national championship and goes through the like whatever. He has a great off season, great workouts, whatever. Then you're thinking like he might be top 10. So if we're not sitting at 9, we're going to have to trade up to get him.
I think in general top 10, yes, but I think the knees will scare teams away from taking him that high. Which is why I think he's going to fall 10 to 15. I think that's, or 12 to 15. I think that's kind of going to be his window. Just because, and who knows, maybe there will be a team that says screw it, we're just going to take the risk anyway. But at the end of the day, that's a really risky move for a GM to make, because like obviously if you take him and it works out, it's like, oh, awesome. But if you take him and he has another knee injury, then the ownership's looking at you like, you knew he had these injuries. Why would you take this high of a risk on a guy like that? So he is a very interesting prospect for that reason, just because of the 2 pretty severe knee injuries. So I'm super curious to see what happens there. As for the other guys, I know it's kind of a consensus that I feel like
consensus right now, but a lot of shit changes.
Yeah, right. But I feel like when it comes to Jaden Daniels, when it comes to JJ McCarthy and Nix, I do feel like it does kind of seem like the consensus that McCarthy would be the first round pick if one of those 2 were to go in the first. And Bo Nix, just because of the age, because of the, kind of took him a while to come on. Then people are wondering, like, is it the Oregon offense? Is that why he's playing so well? I think he's probably the most likely to be taken in the second round. And obviously, everyone looks at this as, oh, there could be 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round. Then there's like 3 and the rest of them fall out of it. So I don't know. It's going to be a really interesting offseason. I know obviously this video, you can see the Detroit Lions and Vikings thing down there. We're not talking a lot about that because like, I don't know. It's on the road in Detroit. We can't play spoiler. Detroit's on a roll. They have something to play for. I mean, even against Dallas, they hung in there. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, they all got their yards. They have 2 really good running backs. Our defense is kind of on a downturn, but it's like, wouldn't it be a poetic thing for the Vikings, right? To go into this game, we're sitting here thinking like, we're probably not going to win. We'll see what happens. Nick Mullins is going to make some turnovers. We come into this game, we win. All 3 of those other scenarios have to happen. We're sitting here talking about where we're going to be at the draft if we win or lose. Watch us make the playoffs. It would be the way this Minnesota Vikings season has gone. It would be the poetic ending that like we're sitting here talking about if we win or we lose, where we're going to be at the draft. They're just going to find a way to win, get into the playoffs, lose the first game probably, and have a little worse pick. It would just be so Minnesota Vikings at this point.
I know. Hopefully, I mean, it's hard to say. Hopefully not. I mean, everybody should love to make playoffs, but you just feel like there's zero. You feel so not confident about your quarterbacks going in that you're just like, it's like going into the playoffs with Joe Webb at the time, where it's like, hey, I mean, some of us were like, hey, like Joe Webb has all the athleticism, like you never know type of scenario with that. I guess you got a little bit more from that, because this time it's like we know what we have and it's not it. So if we go to play, like there's no way Nick, unless the only hope I have now, since after seeing Hall, I was hoping Hall would be that spark, but the only hope I have now is if Nick Mullins just went throughout a whole entire all of playoffs without like throwing any interceptions, like all his crazy stuff just worked out in his favor, then maybe there's a chance. That'd be like the only thing. And I would say that's kind of luck with the way he plays, but he does have the mindset it probably takes to win a championship. He just doesn't have the decision and the perfect accuracy for that to like meet up or whatever. So yeah, I agree with you, but I do have one question for you. I mean, kind of going back to the draft stuff, even though obviously this is about the Lions and the Vikings, but I think a lot of fans watching this, you're at the point now where, hey, we're ready for the offseason. Obviously, we were both on team. Let's kind of go for a better draft pick if we can. If we win, we're not going to cry about it or whatever. It's like, I still want, it'd be nice. There's going to be positives of us winning too. But what would you, for these quarterbacks, and talking about Penix again, do you think would you rather have? Would you rather have a quarterback like Penix who comes in with an injury history, or would you you feel confident he could be good? And let's say he did come and he did get hurt, like year 1 ACL tear, boom, exactly worst case scenario. That's not what we wanted. Or would you rather take a shot on a quarterback, or let's say we just took a chance like a Christian Ponder, and then instead he ended up just being bad? What do you think is the worst scenario? Like picking a player that you wanted high and he was bad, or picking a player high that would have been good, but then he hurt?
I think they both look pretty poor on a GM, because it comes down to like it's for 2 very similar reasons, right? Like, oh, we trust Penix, we know the knees are good. You draft him, tears ACL. Front office looking at, or the ownership's looking at you like,
yeah,
the health. We knew this coming in. He had ACL injury. Why would you do this? And then you draft another guy like, this guy's really good. We trust him, and he sucks. Then they're gonna look at you like, you can't evaluate players. What are you doing? And then like for both reasons.
But I mean, I guess specifically, which player do you think would take longer to move on from?
Depending, you see what I'm saying? In those scenarios.
In those scenarios, like how long? Like let's say.
I mean, it depends. If Penix comes in and he looks like he does in college, and then like halfway through the season he has that injury, and you're just like, man. But once he gets back, we're good. But then if you have another guy, and he just comes in, he just bombs year one, then you're kind of sitting there like.
But then you feel like you have to.
You feel like you could keep developing him a little bit. So I think
sometimes
it'll be harder to move on from the quarterback.
Like Christian Ponder, we had for 4 years, and I actually looked into this.
Christian Ponder jumped pretty much.
Yeah, and we still kept him for 4 years before we decided, like, okay, he's not that guy. And then I was looking at stuff with RG3, who obviously we know what that happened. I think they ended up. He was on their team for like 3 years.
Yeah.
So is that even though RG3 showed. I mean, one of the greatest rookie seasons of all time. And the injuries were so concerning that it only took them 3 years to kind of make that decision.
But that was also a lot to do with the coaching, because him and Shanahan really, it kind of got out there that like, because like there's a reason that they decided to grab our boy Kirk Cousins later on in the draft as well. I think they knew in the back of their minds, like, if he gets hurt, we need another option we can develop.
So that would be crazy. Like, what if we did that? I doubt it. If we keep Kirk Cousins around, I definitely don't think it wouldn't
be Kirk Cousins. It would be you draft a guy in the first round, draft a guy like in the fourth round, just in case one of them doesn't work out. I don't know.
Right. No, I mean, if you already had Cousins on this team, you probably, and you drafted Penix, you probably are like, I don't think we really need to draft the third round, fourth round quarterback too.
No.
But if we didn't have Kirk Cousins, we didn't have any plan.
If you like two of them well enough, yeah.
If you like two of them well enough,
and you think that they have, like similar games yet different games, so we feel like they'd both be good at different things.
Just Kirk Cousins and RG3, completely
two totally different quarterbacks, right?
That's hilarious.
So, I don't know. It'd be interesting. But before we can actually get into this talk, we do have one more game to get through. Minnesota Vikings, Detroit Lions this weekend. What do you guys think we should do? You think we should win? Think we should lose? Let us know down in the comments.
Hey, whoa. Don't skip the score predictions.
All right, score predictions. What do you got?
So, I've yet on this show, I don't know if I've ever had us lose a score prediction before. I don't think so. I don't think I have.
You doing it now?
I would say I think this game is going to be 21-17. It's going to be ugly by both teams, and that's assuming that for whatever reason Detroit maybe it won't be too ugly. I don't know. But I'm just going to go 21-17. I'm going to go with Casey's poetic ending other than us making playoffs. I think it's just going to make a stamp on just one of the more annoying seasons we've had in a while. And the Vikes take it 21-17. We get the 14th spot going into the draft. Okay. And we beat the Lions at least.
I'm going to draw a picture for you. It's 20. It's like, what would be a realistic score? 27-21. It can happen. Yeah. 27-21. Nick Mullins bombs a deep one to JJ. He gets his yardage he needs for 1,000. Goes to throw a fade back corner end zone to Justin Jefferson to tie the game up and have Greg Joseph kick the game-winning extra point. Under short arms, it throws a pick. Lions win 26-21, 27-21. Vikings go into the offseason 7-10. Some questions sitting there at a decent spot in the draft, and just ends even more poetically for this Vikings team.
Yes,
with a turnover.
Ends with a turnover. But on the positive side, Falcons win. Bears beat the Packers. And Packers don't make playoffs. And that would be a big one. And then who was the other team ahead of us?
Tampa or New Orleans?
No, Vegas. Vegas wins. So all those win. We end up with the 9th overall pick, and we either sit there, grab a quarterback in the future, or we even trade up in some scenario and really go after our guy. So boom.
Michael Penix. I have recency bias. I'm sold. But anyway.
But I'm still taking if there's some way possible we trade up and grab Drake May or Caleb Williams. I'm taking my chance on not the bum me, but I did really like what Penix showed in that game.
Yeah, but obviously we got a ton of time to talk about this in the offseason. But anyway, as it goes back to this game, do we win, do we lose? Let us know what you think down in the comment section. See you guys next time right here on the GG Sports Podcast.
Skol Vikes.